Charlie?
I think when it gets really obvious, we'll be very good at it.
Let me get that straight. What did you say exactly?
When it gets really obvious, we'll be very good at it.
Yeah. I was hoping that's what you said. Yeah, we will be good at it. But we don't have any trouble being decisive. We don't do it. We don't say yes very often. But if we something obvious, I mean, if you and I are partners, and our business is worth $1 million, and you say you'll sell your half to me for $300,000, you'll have your $300,000 very quickly. Okay, station 2.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Donahue from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, and I'm with my 10-year-old daughter, Brooke Donahue.
Hi, Warren. Hi, Charlie.
Hi. It's Brooke, is it?
It is.
Yeah.
First, I'm a proud graduate of Creighton University, and I need to say a personal thank you for coming over the years to share your insights. And it's been a tradition since I graduated in 1999 to come to the annual meeting, and thank you for a lifetime of memories.
Thank you.
Brooke is a proud Berkshire shareholder and read the letter and had some questions regarding investments that have been made in the past. And she had made some interesting comments about what she thought was a lot of fun. So our question for both of you is, outside of Berkshire Hathaway, what is the most interesting or fun personal investment you have ever made?
Well, they're always more fun when you make a lot of money off of them. Well, one time I bought 1 share of stock in the Atled Corp. That's spelled A-T-L-E-D. And Atled had 98 shares outstanding, and I bought 1. And not what you call a liquid security. And Atled happened to be the word Delta spelled backwards. And 100 guys in St. Louis had each chipped in $50 or $100 or something to form a duck club in Louisiana. And they bought some land down there. 2 guys didn't come up with it. There were 100 of them. 2 of them defaulted on their obligation to come up with $100. So there were 98 shares out. And they went down to Louisiana, and they shot some ducks, but apparently somebody fired a few shots into the ground, and oil spurted out, and those Delta Duck Club shares, and I think the Delta Duck Club field is still producing. by bought stock in it 40 years ago for $29,200 a share, and it had that amount in cash, and it was producing a lot, and they sold it. If they kept it, that stock might have been worth $2 or $3 million a share, but they sold out to another oil company. But that was certainly that was the most interesting thing. Actually, I didn't have any cash at the time, and I went down and borrowed the money, and I bought it for my wife, and I borrowed the money, and the loan officer said, "Would you like to borrow some money to buy a shotgun as well?" Charlie, tell them about the one you missed.
Well, I have 2 investments that come to mind. When I was young and poor, I spent $1,000 once buying an oil royalty that paid me $100,000 a year for a great many years. But I only did that once in a lifetime. On a later occasion, I bought a few shares of Elridge Oil, which went up 30 times rather quickly, but I turned down 5 times as much as I bought. It was the dumbest decision of my whole life. So if any of you have made any dumb decisions, look up here and feel good about yourselves.
Yeah. I could add a few, but Andrew?
Warren and Charlie, this is a question. Actually, we got a handful of questions on this topic. This is probably the best formulation of it. Warren, you have been a long-time outspoken Democrat. With all the talk about socialism versus capitalism taking place among Democratic presidential candidates, do you anticipate an impact on Berkshire in the form of more regulations, higher corporate taxes, or even calls for breakups among the many companies we own if they were to win? Form of more regulations, higher corporate taxes, or even calls for breakups among the many companies we own if they were to win? And how do you think about your own politics as a fiduciary of our company, and at the same time as someone who has said that simply being a business leader doesn't mean you've put your citizenship in a blind trust?
Yeah, I have said that you do not put your citizenship in a blind trust, but you also don't speak on behalf of your company. You do speak as a citizen if you speak, and therefore you have to be careful about when you do speak, because it's going to be assumed you're speaking on behalf of your company. Berkshire Hathaway certainly in 54 years has never and will never made a contribution to a presidential candidate. I don't think we've made a contribution to any political candidate, but I don't want to say for 54 years that we don't do it. Now we operate in several regulated industries, and our railroad and our utility, as a practical matter, they have to have a presence in Washington and in the state legislatures in which they operate. So we have a few, I don't know how many, political action committees which existed when we bought it. We bought the companies at subsidiaries, and I think that unquestionably they make some contributions simply to achieve the same access as their competitors. I mean, if the trucking industry is going to lobby, I'm sure the railroad industry is going to lobby. But the rule is, I mean, that people do not pursue their own political interests with your money here. We've had one or two managers over the years, for example, that would do some fundraising where they were fundraising from people who were suppliers to them or something of the sort. And if I ever find out about it, that ends promptly. But my position at Berkshire is not to be used to further my own political beliefs, but my own political beliefs can be expressed as a person, not as a representative of Berkshire, when the campaign is important. I try to minimize it, but it's no secret that in the last election, for example, I raised money. I won't give money to PACs. I accidentally did it one time. I didn't know it was a PAC, but I don't do it. But I've raised substantial sums. I don't like the way money is used in politics. I've written op-ed pieces for the New York Times in the past on the influence of money in politics. I spent some time with John McCain many years ago, before McCain-Feingold, and on ways to try to limit it, but the world has developed in a different way. On your question about I will just say I'm a card-carrying capitalist, but I believe we wouldn't be sitting here except for the market system and the rule of law and some things that are embodied in this country. So you don't have to worry about me changing in that manner, but I also think that capitalism does involve regulation. It involves taking care of people who are left behind, particularly when the country gets enormously prosperous. But beyond that, I have no Berkshire podium for pushing anything. Charlie?
Well, I think we're all in favor of some kind of a government social safety net in a country as prosperous as ours. What a lot of us don't like is the vast stupidity with which parts of that social safety net are managed by the government. It'd be much better if we could do it more wisely. But I think it also might be better if we did it more liberally.
Yeah, one of the reasons we're involved in this effort, along with J.P. Morgan and Amazon, with Jamie Dimon and Jeff Bezos, on the medical question, is we do have as much money going, 3.3 or 3.4 trillion. We have as much money going to medical care as we have funding the federal government, and it's gone from 5 to 17% or 18%, while actually the amount going to the federal government has stayed about the same at 17%. So we hope there's some major major improvements from the private sector, because I generally think the private sector does a better job than the public sector in most things. But I also think that if the private sector doesn't do something, you'll get a different sort of answer. And I like to think that the private sector can come up with a better answer than the public sector in that respect. But I will probably, it depends who's nominated, but I voted for plenty of Republicans over the years. I even ran for delegate to the Republican National Convention in 1960. But we are not. I don't think the country will go into socialism in 2020 or in 2040 or 2060. Okay, Greg Warren.
Warren, my first question, not surprisingly, is on share repurchases. Stock buybacks in the open market are a function of both willing buyers and sellers. With Berkshire having 2 shares of classes, you should have more flexibility when buying back stock. But given the liquidity difference that exists between the 2 share classes, with an average of 313 Class A shares exchanging hands daily the past 5 years, equivalent to around $77 million a day, and an average of 3.7 million Class B shares doing the same, equivalent to around 622 million, Berkshire is likely to have more opportunities to buy back Class B shares than Class A, which is exactly what we saw during the back half of last year and the first quarter of 2019. While it might be more ideal for Berkshire to buy back Class A shares, allowing you to retire shares with far greater voting rights, given that there's relatively little arbitrage between the 2 share classes and the number of Class B shares increase every year as you gift your Class A shares to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and your children's foundations, can we assume that you're likely to be a far greater repurchaser of Class B shares going forward, especially given your recent comments to the Financial Times about preferring to have loyal individuals on your shareholder list, which a price tag of $328,000 of Class A shares seems to engender?
Yeah, we will, when we're repurchasing shares, if we're purchasing substantial amounts, we're going to spend a lot more on the Class B than the Class A, just because the trading volume is considerably higher. We may, from time to time, well, we got offered a couple blocks in history, going back in history, from the Yolchi estate, and when we had a transaction exchanging our Washington Post stock for both a television station and shares held by the Washington Post. So we may see some blocks of A, we may see some blocks of B, but there's no question if we are able to spend 25, 50, or $100 billion in repurchasing shares, more of the money is almost certainly going to be spent on the B than the A. We don't. There's no master plan on that other than to buy aggressively when we like the price, and as I say, the trading volume in the B is just a lot higher than the A in dollar amounts. Charlie?